Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville. And the article I wrote this week was that basically the spiritual path isn't for everyone. And what prompted me on that is over the last few weeks we've been looking at what is the spiritual path, where are we all going, what is the sense of all this, why am I here, the old questions, why am I here, what am I here to do, what's the purpose of me being in here, and all those questions. And Valerie, in her meditation just now, used a very interesting phrase. What she said was, create a space, or sit in the silence and sit in the presence of the divine. And open a space where the divine can tell us what to do. Because we don't do that, and I'm thinking about that. And I'm going to go back. In 1978, I think I've shared some of this with you, but I was in a car on my way from Montgomery, Alabama to Mobile, Alabama. And the gentleman that was driving the car was a trainer for a company, let's call it a motivational company. And I was really introduced to this idea. I was manager of at the time, of a 4-state region for a food processing company. And I was excited about some new ideas going on. And he put a tape on his, now it was a regular cassette tape, everybody familiar? You don't see them anymore, but it was a cassette tape. And it was a Cadillac that I was driving in. And I heard Catherine Ponder for the first time talk about the principles of life. That what you think about, you create, that abundance is your divine right, and these ideas really turned me on. I have to tell you, because I was raised in a rather fundamentalist background. I had been told that I was sinful. I was told I should be guilty. I was told that there was evil in the world, so I had to be careful. And that if I didn't do things the right way, I was going to hell. Isn't that exciting? And I started thinking, well, maybe there's more. And subsequently, the company I was working for was purchased by another company. And if anybody's familiar with what happens to upper level management when a new company comes in, that happened. I got a golden parachute. Within 3 months, I was out the door. But it was exciting. It really was. And so we moved to Mobile, Alabama. And in Mobile, Alabama, there was a small Unity church. It was in a storefront. And we started attending. And first time we went, I can remember Reverend Carolyn Crane. She passed on recently. But I heard these ideas that there is no sin. Sin is a man-made idea. And that the real definition of sin was from the ancient English, which meant an archer missing the mark. So it didn't mean a horrible thing. All it meant was I didn't do it right. Or I didn't think right. Isn't that, totally different? And then I heard about the law of attraction in Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So I started digging into things and ran into the quantum physics idea that what I think about, I create. And all of a sudden that clicked in. See, the disparities in life really bothered me. It used to bug me, Mike and I were talking. And it used to bother me that I was sitting in church hearing that everybody was going to hell unless they believed this. And it didn't click for me. Because at the time I felt, how can a loving God condemn people to hell? It didn't make any sense. And why was there such a disparity in life? And why were people so different? And all of a sudden, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, made sense. There were all the outcomes of our own personal thinking. Now, that's a difficult message because you have to accept responsibility for I was going to use the word crap in my life, but I can't do that. Cancel. But it was really funny. And then we got involved in the idea that God is good. One of the unique principles is that there's only one power and one presence in the world, God the good, omnipotent. And if that's true, there's no evil power. But that was explained to me, and it made sense to me that there is no evil power as such. There's just the absence of God. It's like the light. The light is, the energy of light is an energy. And there is no energy called darkness. There's only an absence of light. So it made sense to me. So I started putting these things together, and all of a sudden I started digging in. Now, what happened was that I just started reading and reading and reading. It was a period of my life when I started just reading everything, in the New Thought or in the Bible or in religious areas. And then we started attending seminars. Anybody familiar with all those seminars? Mm-hmm. Anybody been through EST and the Forum and the Spring and that and this and that? We have been certified in everything you can think of. NLP masters and Reiki masters and this. And it's on and on and on in a search. Hoping that the next thing is the one thing that makes a difference. Everybody there? Mm-hmm. Which is what we view as a spiritual path. And the problem is, I was still dealing with the stuff. See, I cleaned it up a little bit. So the idea behind it is, where are we going? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And why are we living the way we are? Why do we have unevenness in the world? Why do we have bias in the world? Why do we have two political parties in the United States that can't even talk to each other? Okay, why is all this occurring? And the more you dig into that, the more you understand that the human being, the humanness, creates a story to keep us separate. See, the big issue is we are separate from each other and we are separate from God. And so, after all this time, literally, I've read thousands of books. And I'm not saying anything other than it was an education. Thousands of dollars on seminars and this and that. And you know where I am? After 40 years, I'm back to basics. There is only one power called God. And you can call it anything you want to. You can call it Allah, the universe, it. I had a good friend that used to call it George. I've shared that story with you. Okay? It just doesn't matter. And there is only one power, and that power is an energy for good in the universe. And it loves you, it loves me, it loves all of us. Number two, we have access to that power, and that power is part of who we are. There isn't anything else other than that power. Anything that appears that is other than that power is our story being made up. And that power, we are part of that power, and we actually are the energy creating our own world around us. And as far as we know, and I'm not going to get too deep, but as far as we know, even when we're born, we decide what type of life we're going to lead and what events we're going to experience in this new life we're coming into. So we have chosen everything, okay? And then this power for good, I have a pattern within me, which we call the perfect pattern. And that perfect pattern is the Garden of Eden energy that I am living in this world taking care of. Now, it appears that I'm not. However, remember, the world wants us to be separate. So we have this program that the world has given us that we have to struggle to survive. And so I started out, because here's where I was. I did a lot of research on the subconscious mind. Madeline became a hypnotherapist, and I became that too. And so I was pulling out the Paul's verse, be renewed by the reconditioning of your mind, the renewing of your mind. So I started literally, you talk about affirmations. I used to sit for hours and write out affirmations. Anybody remember in school when you got caught talking when you shouldn't have? They made you write out, I will not talk in school. Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, I thought, wow, what a good idea. And so I started writing. I had yellow pads. We had them all over the place. And I would write, I am now happy, prosperous, and whatever. Okay? And so I felt that I could reverse everything by the renewing of my mind. Make sense? Now, folks, everybody has an idea on how to change life. Do you understand how many deals there are out there? And we separate them into the body, mind, spirit, and I believe the Christ mind. And we discussed this in our leadership meeting on Thursday. By the way, if you want to know what we're doing, come that next Thursday meeting. But anyway, the body. And right now, you got to have a clean body. It's got to be cleared up. But anybody agree? There are people out there talking about, all you have to do is eat, I don't know, lentils and baked beans, and you're going to be wonderful. Okay? Really, there are. And I'm not going to get it. Doesn't matter, but that's the end of all life. If you do this, you're going to be okay. And then we go on into the, I was an NLP master, so, thinking and affirmations. And if you do this, life's going to be great. And then if you pray, everybody's got their ideas, okay? And if you follow their ideas, you're going to be okay. And of course, in a lot of cases, you have to pay X amount of dollars to do it. So everybody's got their issues. And I spent years. We also got involved in suggestive sleep tapes. Okay, I don't know if you remember the cassette tapes. There used to be loops. You could buy a 10, 12-minute loop. And I would put affirmations, my affirmations, because I knew how to write affirmations. You see how the ego takes over. And we're going to run things. So I wasted hours. I used look at her, she's laughing. It's crazy what we went through. And the hours we spent doing things. And I had special speakers that you put under your pillow and kept those things going night after night after night. Nothing happened. Okay? And here I am now. And the last couple of weeks I've heard let go and let go. And see, that's starting to make sense to me. Because number one, there's a power for good in the universe. Okay? And most organizations have accepted that. Now, there's also the belief there's a power for bad in the universe. But I believe that's because we've been given free will to think what we want to think. And we'll discuss that a little bit. But there's power for good in the universe. We are told there was a Garden of Eden, which was a metaphor for everything being perfect. And then we got involved thinking it other than that. And here we are, X thousands of years later, overcome with the thinking of man in a huge cloud, okay? And so maybe it's just returning to the original idea, or the Garden of Eden idea, or as Joe Vitale says, 0 point, when we erase everything. So the idea behind that is let go and let God. And that's when Valerie was talking in the meditation about going to the silence and create space of nothing. You see, here we've covered up our world with thoughts. Do you understand? Some people can't even sit quietly for 5 minutes without turning the TV on, and we always have to have something going in the background. Did you ever try to just sit with somebody silently for 10 minutes? You can't do it because you got to yap. So we have created a world of noise, interference, distractions, and beliefs that keep us grounded in the problems rather than in the silence of God. So maybe the answer is to stop and let it all go. Isn't that interesting? So everything I've done for 40 years has been, I won't call it a waste, but I'll call it allowing the world to run me. Because I said, here's what, you listen to it, what I can do to become better. Rather than let it all go and return to the Father. And the phrase, it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Okay, and the question is, do I really believe it? And do we really believe it? Where are we going? What are we doing? And who are we listening to? I've had some interesting thoughts. One of those times, anytime somebody tries to create fear, I'm suspicious. How does the world control us? By creating fear. And around us, how many people are trying to motivate us by creating fear of something? See, we got to have a crisis in order to work, to act, to do something. Now, unfortunately, the crisis is not our crisis. It's a crisis created by other people to create motivation for us. It's an interesting idea. Now, how far do I carry that? The kingdom of heaven is within. It's the Father's good pleasure to give each of us the kingdom. And we are an individual expression of divinity. So as an individual expression of divinity, we get direct information from divinity when we're quiet. Because the world wants to keep us busy thinking and acting and screaming and lisping but when we get still, which seems to be the answer, that's when we start getting answers from the divine. And what does the divine tell us? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's really fascinating. I'm way off, by the way. It's funny. It really is. But again, see, I am full of beliefs that I created and the world around me created. And every group I became part of, they wanted me to accept their beliefs. See, when I was a child going to church, I had to believe those beliefs in that church. Now, I couldn't do it, okay? I just knew something was wrong, which meant within me, I was getting an answer. How many times are you sitting in a place when you hear a conversation and you just know it doesn't feel right? That's spirit saying, hey, there's another answer. And what is the answer? Maybe the answer is to separate myself or to let go and let God. Do you understand one of the most frightening things is to let go and let the outcome come? Stop and think about it. I think it's Carlos Castaneda in one of his books uses the metaphor that stop and think about this. It's like standing on the edge of a big cliff and you're told that you can fly. And there's only one way to find out that you can fly. Step off. And that's what it feels like in a world without beliefs. And you see, the problem is the world around us has created our beliefs. And the beliefs basically are you're going to have to struggle all your life. You're not good enough. You're too fat. You're too thin. You're bald. You're the wrong color. Whatever it is, the world is giving us beliefs, and we buy into it and create a crisis. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've been reading Joe Dispenza, and he says that we have trained ourselves to create the future. For example, we create tomorrow because it's like every time we brush our teeth, we use our whatever hand, the right hand, and we start on the left-hand side, and we brush a certain way. So we have created the pattern for the way we're going to brush our teeth for the rest of our lives. Because we don't even think of it. And we are so patterned into all of these, you ready, information loops. And you have information loops, I have information loops, the way life is. It's like, I can remember, I don't know where this is coming from, but I can remember I was a little bit awkward when I began dating, okay? This is way back. And I didn't know how to speak to women. Any of you guys familiar with that? And it was like, you talk about stuttering and stammering. And I realized it's not worth it. So I didn't date. So I created a life, thank God it's ended, but of not dating because I didn't know how to talk. So what I did was unintentionally create an information loop of how to act in life. And we have thousands of these information loops we're not aware of. And we keep creating the future out of our beliefs today. And even our religious beliefs, we keep creating. So the idea behind it is that the only information that's really true is the information from the divine. So the divinity knows what's best for us. I'm even beginning to think, and this is heresy for me, but I used to teach goal setting. In management, I talk about strategic planning, that you have to have a plan. But maybe the divine has a better plan for us if we just let go and let God. But the problem is, it's that cliff, and here we are, I'm going to have to step off. And do you realize how much trust and faith it takes to turn it over and really let go and let God? So that's kind of like where I find myself right now, just openly with you. I mean, we've created a huge issue over here. Do you understand? We are finding $1.3 million to build that building. Okay? And you talk about a huge cliff. Belief. Do you hear the belief? Could be the simplest, easiest thing we do. Because we create these big issues. So the key to it is, where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Maybe the time is stop doing. Because I've been conditioned, you've probably been conditioned to do. And you can't stop. You have to keep moving. You ready for this? Forward. So what is forward? Maybe it's backward. Stop and think about that. Maybe it is backward. And so the kingdom of heaven is within. Am I going to rely on that kingdom of heaven? Or am I going to let the world tell me to do it their way? Charles Fillmore was real interesting. You talk about a radical. This guy was a radical. He believed he could figure out how to live forever, by the way. I think he also believed he could learn to walk on water. Who knows what we can learn? But in his books and in his writings, he was always talking about that we are part of the divine. And if we believe that, then we have a power beyond understanding. And I'm going to read, this is from his book, Teach Us to Pray. God is spirit. God is the source of all that we are. So God is spirit means by definition it's everywhere present. And the Bible says God is spirit, we must worship him in spirit and truth. And spirit by definition means everywhere present, under all conditions, under all situations. So sitting there right now, you are spirit. David, spirit, spirit. All of you are spirit. Okay? And that spirit is the animating spirit of the universe, God. So it says, and substance and intelligence, and hence the source of life, substance, and intelligence. The one and only substance out of which all things are formed is right here, right now. So you are everything that is. Here's an interesting idea if you ever stop to think about this. In Genesis it said, and God has created the earth, etc. But it didn't say that creation ended. Do you understand that you are a part of creation right now? And you are creating the new world. How many things exist today that didn't exist 10 years ago? It's amazing what's happening. I was reading an article about artificial intelligence. Do you want to create fear? Are you ready? They are saying 40% of the jobs today are not going to be necessary in 10 years. Okay? Why? Because man, you are creative. You are using God's spirit to change things for the better. Now, do you think the same spirit that creates things for the better could figure out a way to keep us all in abundance? Because it's God's idea of abundance, not ours. You see, when man gets involved in things, it becomes lack and restrictive. But in God's world, it's open. It's all possible. Stop thinking about that. I shouldn't go here.
Go ahead. We'll wait.
Well, the latest fear is climate change. Yes?
Yeah.
Who's decided that?
People.
Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's people. Okay? Is that in God's world? If we say Gaia, Mother Earth is sentient or a thinking being, would you agree she's already got it all figured out?
Mm-hmm.
And here we're sitting here worrying about what we can do. See, it's amazing to me that we minimize ourselves because we're each a child of God creating our world. Okay? Let me go on. I'm starting to preach, aren't I?
Good for you.
Okay. The one and only substance out of which all things are formed is right here at all times, awaiting our recognition of its spiritual freedom. So when I say spiritual path, Spiritual path literally means letting go. Stop trying to figure it out, which is difficult for me anyway, because I always have to have the answer. I love to be Mr. Fix-It. Anybody else? If it can be, I can figure it out. And so we're always trying to figure things out, rather than stepping back and letting go. So the spiritual path is really literally letting go and going into the sounds and taking the time to be one with Spirit. I'll finish up here. Okay, when we do recognize in the simple faith that it will carry out our demands, we are doing just what Jesus did. So it's letting go and letting God. So to bring it all the way back, after 40 years, I've decided that there's a power for good in the universe, that I am an instrument of that, an expression of that power. I'm interacting with same folks doing the same thing, and I honor you, and I don't see you as anything other than divine, which is very interesting, because I have to look at all the political people as divine. I have to look at all my next door neighbors as divine. I have to look at all the family that is wonderful. Do you understand where I'm going? So all it means is we are a child of God. Everything in our world we have created, and we can change it by seeing it as divinity. So that's where we are, that's what we're learning, and that's our message. And the only thing I can say is I love you dearly. Thank you for being part of my world. I almost want to cry, because we are a community of believers in each other. Thank you. I love you.
I love you.